There we go. Got to get in a good vibe for the class tonight. Welcome, everybody. JT here with Treasure Valley Financial Planning. I am your host tonight for the Women's Retirement Roadmap. And this is going to be an awesome class. I'm going to give you every ounce of value and tips and tricks that I can possibly give you in 45 minutes to an hour. And so let us begin. Again, thank you so much for coming. And I want to begin by jumping in and giving you a little bit of an explanation on why I'm so passionate about this and why this means so much to me. In particular, doing a class specifically for women. My wife grew up as a beautiful little baby in Seattle, Washington, and she was raised by her mom, and she had a father for 1 year, and then he chose to leave their family, and she never saw from him or heard from him up until recently, and she's in her late 30s now. And her mom raised my wife on her own, and actually a year later, when my wife was only 1 year old, my mother-in-law developed cancer that was very serious, and she almost lost her life. But she was able to make a full recovery, and she was able to raise my wife by being a single mom. And it taught my wife to be independent and to learn how to take care of herself. And since then, my wife and I have been blessed to have 5 beautiful children, 4 of whom are girls, and I'm going to show you our little family here because I think it's important for you to get a visual. So I've got 4 daughters, 1 boy right in the middle. He says he's in a sister sandwich. My kids are 11, 9, 7, 5, and 3. And raising these 5 children and these 4 girls, I just have a total passion for empowering them to taking control of their finances and being really smart with what they do in life in general. And so because of that, we've kind of developed this following, if you will, of women that come to us for financial planning advice. So thank you for being here. This is going to be really, really good. I hope you find it to be a lot of value. So let's get started. Just so you know where I'm broadcasting from, our office is actually right across the street from St. Luke's Hospital on Eagle Road. You'll recognize this building possibly. That is where our office is located, just so you know. That's where I'm at actually right now. And the other thing I want you to know, if you look on the left side of the screen, we are fiduciary advisors. What that means is we only do what is in your best interest. We do not have an agenda this evening. We're not going to be selling any products or surprising you with a timeshare presentation or anything like that. This is strictly advice based on what we consider to be prudent and in your best interest with no conflicts of interest. So you need to know that up front as we get going. This tonight is what I call Act 1. This is the class where I can give a lot of general advice, and because I can't sit down with you one-on-one, I cannot give you particular recommendations for you specifically. I will give you a lot of tips and tricks, but just so you know, I also am offering Class 2 free of charge. You'll see in a moment an opportunity to register for that, and I recommend that you do it quickly when you can. They fill up fast. It's a phone call where we've got 15 to 20 minutes together where I can listen to your situation, and you can say, JT, this presentation was great. How does this particular strategy apply to me? And I will actually be able to advise you specifically. So that is included in this webinar in a second class, and you will have that opportunity a few different times throughout this webinar. Okay, so also I want you to stay until the end, because those of you that do, and I'm going to try and be done in 45 minutes or so, depending on how we go. I am going to record this webinar and provide it to everyone that stays on the webinar, so you can relax and not have to take as many notes. You can, I know someone's cooking dinner, I know you guys are busy, so I want you to have the recording, and I will package it up to you for you along with some information that I think will be really valuable and I will send it to you. So make sure you stay until the end so we can get you that information. What I want you to feel at the end of this webinar is three things: confidence, peace of mind, and hope. This is the Greek symbol of strength. It's a three-pillar approach. I want you to feel more empowered, confident, have peace of mind and strength, that despite the goofy world we're in right now in 2020, we can move the needle forward on your retirement plan, that things aren't as bad as they possibly seem, and that no matter where you are, if you're an advanced retirement planner, immediate, or maybe a novice, we will be able to help you move the needle forward. That is my mission for each one of you. And I really hope that you walk away from tonight feeling better about your situation than you ever have before. That is the goal. So women are facing some very specific and unique challenges when it comes to retirement planning that men do not face, and couples don't face if they're married. We are going to talk tonight in a couple of ways. One of them is for women that are single. A lot of our clients are divorced or widowed. However, I do know there's a lot of you that are married, but regardless, you will find that women have some very specific challenges that need to be tackled. So we are taught our entire life to save our nickels for retirement. And we save and save and save, and we climb this mountain to retirement. And eventually we get to the top. And at the top is usually somewhere in our 60s. We say, you know what? It's probably time I want to transition to financial independence. Maybe you do want to continue working in some fashion or part-time, but you're looking to phase out and ski down the other side of the slope. And when we do that, if you look at that graph, it could be 30 years of retirement. That's a really long vacation from 65 to 95. And the really critical piece is in between age 65 and 72. If you can focus on those 7 years and get those right, the rest of your retirement is going to be much better for you. So we really want to focus on in between 65 and 72. Why is that? Well, let's think about what happens in between those years. At 65, we're Medicare eligible, so we will be making an election on Medicare unless we're possibly working and getting our health insurance through our employer. But at some point in those 7 years, we're going to be making a decision on Medicare. We're going to be turning on Social Security in some form. I'm assuming most of you will be qualified to get a Social Security benefit. The government will force some money out of our pre-taxed accounts. We're going to talk about that tonight, at least by age 72. And so a lot of things will happen, and there's many more I didn't mention in between there. So we've got to get the next 7 years right, because if we do that, it's more maintenance at that point from age 72 and beyond. Okay, so we got to hang in there and get those 7 years together. Here's a couple of things I'd like to point out that I think are really important for us to know. 49% of women end up becoming homeless. 90% of women believe they need to be more involved in their financial strategies, and 44% of American women are widowed, single, or divorced. So if you add all that together, we come up with a recipe that really needs addressing. We've got, a lot of our women are worried about the future. They're doing it on their own. They're pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. They don't have a lot of help in certain circumstances. And almost all of them want to be more involved. And you fall into that 90% category because you are here tonight. So thank you for doing that and taking the bull by the horns and taking an action, which is awesome. Another interesting thing we find is that 12% of women only are very confident about their ability to retire. And I think that's just sad. It's sad because it is so hard to wake up and go to work day after day when you can't see light at the end of the tunnel. We want you to have light at the end of the tunnel so you have energy to work and do your best at work. Hard to do that when you don't think you'll ever be able to retire. 53% of women plan to retire after age 65 or not at all. And 1/3 of women only use a professional advisor. Most of them are going alone. So these are all things that we need to think about and how we can move the needle forward on all of these statistics. That's what we're going to help with this evening. Okay, now each of you, I know you're cooking and you're busy and you're doing stuff. I want you to pretend for a moment you're at my office, just you and I one-on-one, and you come to me and you say, JT, where do I even start building a retirement plan? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly where I would start. I'm going to give you action tips and lay out exactly what you need to do to begin building your retirement plan. Okay, so let us begin. The first thing I want you to do is find out if there is going to be an income gap from when you retire or from when you're working to when you retire. Let me show you what that looks like. How you're going to do that is the first step is I want you to gather up all of your guaranteed income sources. So what I mean by that is Social Security payments, pension payments, and annuity payments. Those are what I call guaranteed income streams. And I want you to roll up your sleeves and call your plan administrator or Social Security department or whatever you need to do to don't just say, oh, how much am I entitled to? We got to really figure out what these plans entail. They have a lot of options. Do you know how many times I see someone that comes to me and they say, oh, JT, good thing my husband has a pension and it's $4,000 a month and that really helps our family, only to find out later on that if he were to pass away, that pension doesn't transfer to her, or maybe half of it transfers, and it's a big surprise. And we could have avoided that by making an election on the front end of that benefit. So we need to find out all of the nitty-gritty details about our annuity payments, our pensions, and our Social Security. I am going to, on the screen, push over my little button that says schedule a call. I'm going to do this a couple times during the webinar. This is to schedule directly on my calendar for Act 2, where we're going to do a 15-minute to 20-minute call, longer if needed. Here's one of the things I can do for you in that meeting. I will help you figure this out, the Social Security, the pensions, and the annuity payments. If you want a little bit of help calling an administrator or finding out what benefits you actually have, what they're worth, and how they work, then schedule that with me and we will go for it together. What we don't want is any surprises, and we want to maximize these plans. Okay, so once you've done that, let's pretend we've done our diligence and you've got the number on how much money you're going to be getting every month from a guaranteed source. Let's say that is $5,000 for a round number. I want you to compare that to your regular monthly spending that you will be needing to spend in retirement. So mortgage or rent, if you still have a mortgage payment, or if you're going to be renting, food, utilities, things like Netflix, cell phone bill, things you're going to probably be paying for the foreseeable future. And I want you to line those items out. It doesn't have to be to the penny, but sketch them out. And I want you to compare your guaranteed income. Remember in our example, $5,000 a month. It could be 3 or 6 for you, but you need to find out what it is and compare it to what is my monthly spending. Now, I don't want you to include extras like travel and things like that. That'll come next step. So in this step is guaranteed income compared to monthly spending. Okay, with me so far? And once you do that, you're going to either have an income gap or you're going to have a surplus on your income and you're going to not have a gap. But we need to identify, do we have a gap or not? Remember this slide before? Do I have a gap or do I not? That's what we want to find out, step 1. Okay. Next step after the gap is now I want you to rough sketch your extra spending. Okay. Traveling, home repairs, medical or long-term care expenses, and any extra fun. So for our clients, we usually budget out how much we think they'll spend in traveling. Sometimes it's every year, Sometimes people say I'm going to travel one big trip every 2 or 3 years. So kind of rough sketch that out. We need to figure out about how much we'll need for home repair and maintenance and for medical cost, and then any extra fun things you're wanting to do. I call these your ad hoc expenses or your more discretionary spending, and come up with that. Maybe it's an annual number, not a monthly number. That's probably typical. And then I want you to compare that on the right side to your saved retirement dollars. So remember, we're not talking about guaranteed income, pensions, Social Security, annuities. We're talking about your saved money. So this could be IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, 403b, 457. Add up the total dollar amount you've got in a retirement pot. For this example, let's say it's $500,000. A simple rule of thumb is to apply 4% of that number. So in this case, 4% of 500,000 is 20,000 a year. That is a good number to begin thinking about how much you could take from those accounts to fund this extra spending, which was traveling, medical, home repairs, and things like that. There's some nuances to it, and it doesn't always work just like that. But that's a good place to start. Okay, I'm going to pull this offer back off for the calendar. We'll get back to it in a moment. I'm opening the chat back up just in case anyone has a question. Rob is moderating for us tonight. You can ask him anything if you need to. I see in the chat there is a question. Somebody said, I want to do a call, but not at the arranged time. Great question. That's fine. Tell Rob when works for you. I'll call you later in the evening. I'll call you earlier morning. If it doesn't fit on the calendar invite I've got, no problem. We'll make it work for you. Okay? So just let Rob know. He'll get you in there. Okay, Social Security. Did you know the average American household is giving up over $100,000 in Social Security benefits because they're not maximizing their Social Security? Well, we don't want you to be in that. We want you to be part of the household that maximizes it. So we're going to talk about the benefits of waiting, delaying your Social Security, the trap you could get in of claiming early while working, some protections that are in place for you on your Social Security benefit, and if there's any special circumstances you may fall into. Now, how Social Security is calculated is they look at your total working record. So here is one action item I want you to do, and remember, I'll give you this recording. You don't have to remember right now, but I want you to get your Social Security statement, and you can go online, and we'll maybe Rob can put it in the chat where you go to pull your statement, ssa.gov/my account. Rob can drop a link in there. You're going to go there and you're going to produce a statement for yourself. And on the last page, you're going to look at your working record. Social Security looks at your 35 highest earning years to calculate your Social Security benefit. And if you were removed from the workforce for a little while, if you look at my example here with Mrs. Jones, you can see in her 30s, she was not working and earning a wage. Maybe she was doing volunteer service or raising a family. Those zero numbers work against you for calculating your benefit. But I have seen occasionally, it doesn't happen often, that you are entitled to a working record during those years because you worked, but they're showing that you did not. So it was not reported correctly. So one thing I want you to do is make sure on your Social Security statement that you are being, all of the years you worked are being accounted for, because that will increase your benefit. So action item, check your Social Security statement, make sure your working record is accurate. Now, if on your Social Security statement, there's something called your full retirement age. Those born at 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67 years of age. For some of you, it may be like 66 and change. It'll say on your statement what your full retirement age is. So in this example, once you've identified what your full retirement age is, it'll say something like you're entitled to $2,000 a month for the rest of your life for Social Security. You can, however, take the benefit as early as 62 and as late as 70. For those that are widowed, they can actually take it as early as 60. But the thing to remember is there is a benefit to waiting. We get an 8% increase in our benefit for every year that we wait. And you don't have to wait the full year. It's like treading water. As long as you can keep your head afloat, you're going to get credit for every week and month that you wait. And Social Security will prorate that amount. So you can take it as early as 62, but you're going to have a reduction from your full retirement age amount. All right? You can wait till as late as 70. If you know anyone that's over 70 and not taking Social Security, tell them to turn it on, because there is no benefit to waiting. All right, now, here is what I call a little bit of a caution for those of you who are working and earning a little bit of money and you are thinking of taking Social Security early. This is directly from the IRS website. And it says, if you're younger than full retirement age, so remember, for most of you, that'll be between 66 and 67. So let's say you're 62 to 66, in between there. We must deduct $1 from your benefits for each $2 you earn above $18,240. And if you reach full retirement age during 2020, we're going to deduct $1 for every $3 you earn above $48,600 until the month you reach full retirement age. What does this mean? What it means is if you're taking your benefit prior to your normal age, so you're taking it early, and you're working and earning more than the limits outlined, 18,240 or so, be very careful of that, because it's going to goof you up a little bit. It doesn't mean, you know, that really bad things are going to happen, but you need to be careful of it. Talk to your tax planner or your advisor on the consequences of that. But in general, you want to wait to, especially if you're working and you don't need to take Social Security because you're working, you don't need the income. Let the 8% growth work in your favor and delay the benefit. Okay. So, but I want you to be careful of that little trap there. Now, what protections are in place for people who have not much of a working record or none at all? So my wife was a school teacher for several years. She's been on break now for 10 years raising these children. And so her working record says on there, you have not qualified for benefits. Well, what I want you to know is that because we are married, let's fast forward time and say that now I'm 67 and I'm full retirement age. I'm going to be able to collect, for a round number, $2,000 of Social Security benefits because I am working. Now, my wife, even if it says on her statement, you are entitled to no Social Security because you have not earned enough credits to qualify, she is entitled to a spousal benefit where she can get up to half of my benefit if she takes it at her normal age as well. So my family could receive $3,000 a month in Social Security, $2,000 from my record, and $1,000 from my wife taking the spousal benefit. That's a protection for women that have been out of the workforce for any length of time. Even if her benefit, even if she did have a working record, but it was like $800 a month, she would either get her own or half of mine, whichever is larger. So a lot of people come to me and we sketch it out and they don't realize that they're entitled to it. And we can find them another, $1,000 a month in Social Security benefits. Okay. So something to be aware of. Now, if you fall in any of these 4 special circumstances, schedule time to talk with us in the second class, especially, okay? I'm going to put the offer for the second class back up right now so you can schedule the time. And like I said, if you can't find a time on my calendar that works for you, let Rob know. We'll find a better time for you. But if you've been married over 10 years and you're currently not remarried, so you were married for 10 years or longer, divorced, and not remarried, you could be entitled to your prior spouse's benefit. I knew a lady one time who came to see us who was married 3 different times, each over 10 years, and was single again. And we were able to check her own Social Security record against her 3 prior spouses. And she could have taken her own benefit or off of one of their records, whichever was larger. So she actually had 4 options. Another thing to note, my sister-in-law actually was going through a divorce. She was 9 years and 10 months into the marriage, and I had her hold off on the official filing of the divorce until she was over 10 years, just as a protection to her in case she never remarried and she needed to have that backup plan. Fortunately, she is married now, and it's a moot point because once you marry again, all of this goes away. You are now tied to your spouse's record, okay? If you are widowed, number 2, if you have a large age gap between you and your spouse, or number 4, you're born before January 1st, 1954, definitely let us know on that next call, because you've got some very special things that need to be planned out, and actually some benefits that other people don't have. So if one of those 4 apply to you, definitely let us know on the next class. Okay, 61% of women are going to be responsible for their retirement at some point. And this is because of a lot of factors, but I wanted to talk right now about the consequences of women becoming responsible for their own retirement. One of the first things to note is a lot of times women will go from a married filing jointly tax situation, which is more favorable, to becoming single, filing as an individual, and their tax rate actually goes up because we've got more favorable tax code for those married filing jointly. So if that's a recent change for you, it's something to bear in mind. Also, remember that protection for my wife where I would earn $2,000 a month in Social Security and she would earn $1,000. If one of us were to pass away, that $1,000 a month is going to go away. So our Social Security check will be reduced upon one of our passing. So that's another thing that could happen. Also, like I mentioned, on those pension plans, if we're not careful upon the death of our spouse, maybe that isn't coming over to us like we think, or maybe only part of it. Also, do they have life insurance that would pay a tax-free benefit to help you in retirement? That is another thing to double check, find out what kind of insurance it is. A lot of people get confused, and it's not true life insurance. It's more like a death and dismemberment policy. So we really need to make sure we understand those. And lastly, we would probably be inheriting our retirement accounts from our spouse that have some nuances to them that we need to figure out. They would turn into beneficiary accounts at that point, potentially, or they would just be transfers into your name. So those are all things to bear in mind. Now, here is something that it's fascinating that's happened over time. When our parents retired, did you know 50% of employers offered a pension plan? And the remainder of the retirement was largely Social Security checks, and a little bit was their own nest egg. That pyramid has been completely flipped on its head. Only 13% of employers are offering pension plans anymore. If you're blessed to work for the school district or the fire department or something like that, maybe you have PERSI, or if you lived in California, you've got CalPERS. But a lot of these pension plans are not funded as well as they used to be. So they're a little bit shakier sometimes, and most of us don't have pensions to look forward to. Social Security is always undergoing scrutiny, and really the nest egg is the number one thing that we have to pull ourselves up and figure out on our own. And so that's why we need to become more educated on saving our own dollars. We can't rely on Social Security and pensions as much as we did in the past. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about taxes. Don't go to sleep on me. This is going to be part of the best part of the presentation, because under the new tax code, I think you'll find your tax situation is better than you realize, and there are some neat things we can do with the tax code. Albert Einstein said the hardest thing to understand in the world is the income tax, and that may be true, but I'm going to make it simple, and I'm going to show you how to take advantage of a couple of neat things in here, okay? So typically when people come to see me, and I've done this long enough, I know this probably applies to most of you, people are going to say, JT, I've got my retirement dollars saved, and I bet your largest bucket, that big pink pail, is going to be your pre-taxed account. Okay, that means 401k, traditional IRA, 403b, or 457, where they took it directly out of your check while you were working, and that money's never been taxed. The reason that's the largest bucket is because in the 80s, we shifted to 401k plans, and we put our money in, and our employer matched them, and we grew our money in there. Maybe you have a taxable account, stocks, bonds, or mutual funds that's individually owned, not in a retirement plan. And the smallest bucket, sadly, is the tax-free bucket. That's my favorite bucket, but usually people don't have this bucket, or it's the smallest one represented. That's the Roth IRA and the Roth 401k. Why do we like that? Because we can tap it tax-free. The government will never require us to take any money out of it, and we could pass it on to our kids. They could inherit it tax-free. Tax-free money is a good thing. And but it's usually less represented, right? And so I'm going to show you how to shift the balance in these buckets and get you more tax-free money. Now, look at this first bucket again, pre-taxed. This is 401k, IRA, and 403b. In that bucket, excuse me real quick. Okay, in those buckets, those have never been taxed. So I call it the big tax bubble. That means that at some point, for some of you age 70 or 72 now under new legislation, the government is going to pop that bubble and say, you've got to start taking money out of that account because it's never been taxed and we want our tax dollars. So even if you don't want it and even if you don't need it, the tax is going to come out. It'll be added to your income, so you'll pay taxes at whatever your income rate happens to be, and actually it can cause problems. I've seen people that have saved a tremendous amount of money in these accounts, and they don't have the other two buckets. They just have the first one, and so they have to take out a tremendous amount of money, and every year you have to take out more depending on the balance and depending on your age as you get older. And so a lot of people take a big chunk out, and then their Medicare premium goes up, their tax bracket goes up, and it can cause a lot of other problems. So if we can avoid having this huge tax bubble, that's a good thing. How do we do it? Well, and I did mention this briefly, under the new Secure Act, depending on your age, it is actually 72 now before you are required to take any out. Think about this for a minute. If you're earning as a household $100,000 a year, married, filing jointly, roughly your effective tax rate, not your bracket, but the amount you actually pay the federal government, is close to 8.37%. Did you know you could earn that same amount of money in retirement, $100,000, and your tax rate's going to go in half or less? Why is that? It's because we are taxed more advantageously in retirement than we are when we're working. When you take Social Security and withdrawals from your retirement plans, we are taxed in a more advantageous way than we are through our through our wages while working. So let's say you retire at 65 and you're making $100,000 a year and your tax rate just goes to 4.5%. Well, it opens a huge window of opportunity for you to move some money from that big pre-taxed bucket to the tax-free bucket, called a Roth conversion. The desired setup ideally would be all tax-free, but it's a little unrealistic. Ideally, you're going to have a fairly even balance between your pre-taxed account, your taxable account, and your tax-free account. Do you know why I want you to have multiple buckets? The reason why is because, let's say 10 years from now, you need to put a new roof on your home and a new furnace, and it's going to cost you $20,000. So you come to me and you say, JT, I've got these three buckets. Which one should I take it from? And I'll say, well, let's look at it. If you're in a high tax situation that year, I may tell you to take it from the tax-free account, thus not affecting your taxes anymore. Let's say 10 years from now, you're in a favorable tax situation. We could take the whole amount from the pre-taxed one and pay little taxes. We don't have these options when we have all our money in a pre-taxed scenario. You're stuck. We painted ourselves into a corner. So that's why we want multiple buckets, especially if we believe tax rates in our country may increase over the next 30 years of your retirement. If you're a believer of that is a possibility, you're going to want more in the tax-free bucket. So how do we get it there? This, like I mentioned, this is called a Roth conversion. Now, do not confuse this with a contribution. A contribution, you have to have wages, and there's limits on how much you can contribute. This is a conversion where you could take your entire account pre-taxed and convert it to a Roth, which I am not telling you to do. It needs to be done wisely with precision. At the end of each year, around November, we do tons of Roth conversions for our clients, and we figure out how much can we take from our pre-taxed accounts and convert them to Roth accounts. And we come up with a specific amount, check it with their tax advisor, make sure everyone's on the same page, and execute the conversion. We do that in November because we know about where their income will lie. So Roth conversions can be a tremendous thing for you, especially if you're already retired and your tax rate has potentially come down. Make sure that you schedule time with us to talk about the Roth conversion. It's probably the number one hot button that we're talking to people about, I would say. So there is the calendar button again. I'll leave it up here for a bit for everyone that needs to still schedule. The other thing you can do, if you are charitably minded, when you're 70 years old, if you're 70 now or eventually 72, and the government forces money out of that pre-taxed account, if you change your contributions from your bank account to spending your contributions through your retirement accounts, specifically your IRAs, as long as you name the charity directly from the IRA, it will not even hit your tax return. So I have clients that have been tithing to a church or paying charitable contributions to a myriad of different charities, and we always have them take the Idaho credit for a qualified charity. But above and beyond that, you can actually take money from your traditional IRAs, which are pre-taxed, donate those to charity, and get them removed, or basically they don't hit your tax return. That is, I should say, on the required minimum amount that happens when you're 70 or 72. So that is another great strategy that you should talk with an advisor or a tax advisor about, but it really helps mitigating those required minimums that the government imposes. Okay. If I were to poll all of you, I would venture to guess that healthcare and retirement is one of your biggest concerns. I know this because for my clients, the number one thing they're worried about isn't just running out of money or have I saved enough. It's really, what am I going to do for my future for long-term care and medical? And there's a reason why we should be concerned about this, because someone turning age 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care in the remaining years. 1 to 3 years is how long you'll likely need it for. And 15% of retirees will spend more than $250,000 on medical costs. A lot of you have gone through this with your parents, and it can be very devastating. So we need a good plan for it. What I want you to learn the most from on this one point, because I'm just touching on it quickly. If you do nothing else, I want you to talk to your family about your aging plan. I know it's hard. I know it's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do it, but talk to your children and just have an open conversation about, what do I want to have happen when I become older and need some help? Do I want to remain in my home as long as I can? Do I have children around that have a mother's suite that I'll move into? Do I want to avoid going into assisted living? Start talking about those things and formulating a plan, because all of us know, I'm sure you can tell me your experiences doing this with your own parents. It can be a severe challenge, and most of it's because of lack of communication. So let's start there as a place to begin. Okay, now I'm pivoting topics here for a moment, but here we are in 2020, the goofiest year any of us have ever experienced. from the virus to oil prices to the stock market to the election year. Here is how I want you to think about surviving when the stock market is totally goofy, okay? And this is what we're doing for our clients. I'm going to give you a quick scenario. There's a lot of numbers here, so stick with me. Here are two friends. This is Judy on the top line and Connie on the bottom line. Both of them started with $100,000, and both of them invested in various baskets of stocks and bonds and mutual funds. And they told each other, we're not going to look at this for 25 years. We're going to close our eyes, not watch the news, not look at our statements, and see where we come out at the end of 25 years. And you can see Judy on the top shot out of the gate with great markets, 29% return in her first year, 18, 25, 15, had some ups, had some downs, and toward the end, not so good. But at the end of 25 years, she ended up with $685,000 and an 8% return. Not too bad for setting it and forgetting it and not looking at it. Well, her friend Connie invested in a different basket of goods. And if you look at the numbers, they're the same as her friend Judy's, but they're backwards, they're inverted. So she started out negative, got some up and down, and ended up positive. And she actually ended up at the same place that Judy did, both at $685,000, both at an 8% rate of return. And the lesson learned here is when we're younger and accumulating our money, it doesn't matter so much which year the markets are up and in which year the markets are down. As long as we hold it long enough, we'll be okay. We're always told that. When you're younger, set it and forget it. No, don't look at it, you'll be okay. But how does this change when Judy and Connie are now 25 years older? They've got their $685,000 and now they're at the top of that mountain and they want to live on the money. So remember how I mentioned if you have an income gap? This is for all you people that may have an income gap and you're going to have to live on some of your retirement savings. This is what I want you to understand. Here we are now 25 years later with Judy and Connie. They invest their money again. Now they have $685,000 and Judy at the top has the same returns, shoots out of the gate hot, 29, 18, 25, ups and downs and down. The difference between this scenario and the prior one is both Judy and Connie are taking out 5% per year to live on. Okay, so look over here. Connie at the bottom, she doesn't have as good a luck. Her investments go down, 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 and she's taking 5% out. That's called compound interest the wrong way. And you can see how devastating that is. Connie is out of money in 13 years, where Judy ends up at $1.5 million, even taking 5% of her account out. So what is the lesson here? The lesson is we're not young anymore. We're at the top of retirement, and we can't afford to subject our money to massive losses while we're drawing our income from the account, because it really can devastate our account. And you can see how these numbers are inverted still, even in this scenario, 29, 18, 25, and goes down. Connie's at the bottom, negative 12, negative 21. So the numbers are the same, or inverted. But when we're taking money out of our account, we cannot afford to have major market losses. It can devastate our account. So of course I've set the problem up right. So I need to resolve it, of course. Okay, so here are a few things before I resolve that exact scenario that I want you to think about doing when the stock market is down and when we're in a goofy year like 2020. We called all of our clients and implemented some action items back in March when the markets were just getting hammered. And here's what we came up with, and here's what we helped people do. Number one, if you're still working or you have money on the sideline in bank accounts or cash, it was probably a good time to add more money to your investment accounts. Why? Remember, we want to buy when the market's down and not when it's at its peak. So that was a good buying opportunity. We had our clients put more money in. Number two, remember how we talked about Roth conversions? We did that We usually do it at the end of the year, but we actually did a little bit this year in March. Why? When we move money from the pre-tax to the Roth account, because the market had beat those accounts up a little bit, we were able to move the shares over into the Roth. And as the market rebounded, we were able to appreciate the rebound in the tax-free account. Okay, another thing we did is we had people refinancing their debt. Mortgage loans went to a historic rate. We had clients able to get 30-year mortgages at 2.75%, 15-year mortgages at 2.5% for people still holding mortgage loans. So that was a great time to refinance debt, continue or add more to retirement accounts, like I mentioned before. If you own some individual stock positions that have big gains in them, that was a good time to sell part of it because of the losses that we had in March. Now is also a great time to just reevaluate our spending plan. We had a lot of clients that weren't traveling as much this year, and they could really reflect on their spending and tighten the belt. So reduce your expenses if you have to. And here is a huge strategy that I want you to think about. When we talk about Social Security and delaying it and getting our 8% increase, we were telling our clients for the last 4 to 5 years to delay Social Security and live on their investment accounts. Why? Because the market was favorable. We were living on our investments, spending our income from those, and we were getting an 8% increase on our Social Security. This year, as the markets turned, we called a lot of folks and said, okay, you've been delaying for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Let's turn it on. We're doing that because we can reduce now the withdrawal on the investment accounts. Remember, we don't want to be like Connie, pulling too much money out of an account and going down. So that's a great time to turn on Social Security, turn on a pension plan, and reduce or eliminate your draws on your investment accounts. It's a really good strategy. It's worked out well. Now, for all of you income gap people who do have a gap in your income, so that means you've got to retire or live on your saved money to some degree, this is for you. It's really important that you keep maybe 1 to 2 years worth of spending in cash. Remember how we talked about adding up your spending, your guaranteed spending? Say it's $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. Keep that in cash. And then years 3 to 7, maybe keep in a moderate portfolio, cash, bonds, a little bit of stock. And anything you don't need 7 years and beyond could be moderately aggressive, mostly stock. Well, why would we suggest that? Look what happened in March. As the market got hammered in March, we were able to tell clients to pivot to their cash and live on that. So they're not withdrawing from an account that's getting depleted as the market goes down. So think about stair-stepping your retirement accounts. Years 1 to 2 of spending in cash, years 3 to 7 in a moderate, and years 7 plus. That way, if your 7 plus money that's more aggressive does get beat up in the market, it'll have time, hopefully, to get some recovery by the time you need it. I call this stair-stepping your accounts, and I think it's really a good and important concept. The other thing to do, like I mentioned in the previous slide, so step 1, use your cash, stair-step your accounts like this. 2, turn on your guaranteed income, Social Security or pensions, like I mentioned. And 3, if your accounts are too aggressive and what we went through in March and April was absolutely horrible for you, go ahead and reallocate your accounts to a more conservative position, but don't do it at the bottom of the market. Wait for the rebound. Actually, now is a really good time to do it because we have had a pretty nice rebound in the market despite economic uncertainty. So now actually is a great time to downshift your risk on your accounts if you're feeling like you're too aggressively positioned. Okay. All right. Now we're coming up here to the point where I'm going to wind down a hair. I am going to flip over, stick with me because this last part's really important. Here is the last opportunity. I'm going to leave this up to schedule your second class phone call. But let me just jump in and talk about one of my good clients, Becky. Okay. Becky and Mike had saved and saved and saved for retirement. And they had done everything right. They had been wise. They had saved their nickels. Mike had done most of the financial planning. Becky paid the bills, but Mike was more involved with the investments. And they retired. And it wasn't even a year into their retirement when Mike called our office and he said, "Hey, JT, I really want to buy a motorbike. Which bucket should I take it from?" And we advised him on how to pay for this motorcycle. And his wife followed him home on the bike from her car because he bought it at the dealership, drove it home, and he ended up crashing and he passed away. And this was such an awful experience because Mike and Becky were great friends and clients of ours. And we were one of the last people he talked to for advice about using this motorbike or buying this motorbike. And of course we weren't responsible, but I felt a weight, some physical gravity toward this situation. And the lesson came later when his wife came back into us and said, "Thank you so much for putting this plan together because I know I am taken care of. I know I have a team behind me that is going to make sure that I would do things the way my husband would have." And it's been an honor for us to fill that role in her life and help her get more educated on her financial affairs. And that is why we come to work every day and do what we do and why we are so passionate about it. So let me pull up one other thing. I just want to say thank you so much for attending this evening. I hope this has been valuable. I recognize I went through a lot of topics very quickly. And so that is why we're giving you the opportunity to schedule that second call, because that's where we'll actually be able to give you some specific nitty-gritty information particular to your situation. I want to just turn right here in closing to this right here. Here is where we're located, like I mentioned, right across from Eagle Road in the medical district there. Here is my name and information. We'll send this out to you so you have it. But thank you so much for attending this evening. We really appreciate it. I am going to leave this schedule a call button up on the screen for the next 5 minutes or so after I close out so that you have the opportunity to check your calendar. Let Rob know if you can't find a time that works for you. And we are so looking forward to helping you in your pursuit of retiring confidently. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and stay safe. JT, I've been JT with Treasure Valley Financial Planning. Have a great night.